Welcome to the live stream in conjunction with the annual campaign for Yeshiva Torah Temimah, ytt.edu. It's a schus, an opportunity to sit with some of the most experienced and insightful voices in Chinuch, the magic of Yeshiva Torah Temimah, right here in this room. And as you're listening, friends, alumni, talmidim, parents, admirers of Yeshiva Torah Temimah, and the community that it's built, don't forget, ytt.edu. It's a big covered. Thank you for being here. B'shus, I would sitting here, I'm realizing that both of you are also shul rabbanim, active shul rabbanim. Is that correct? Baruch Hashem. So many of the themes in chinuch, maybe today more than ever, the role that a rav plays in the life of a child. Being mechanech a child, it takes a village, right? It goes so much more beyond the classroom. So let's start with that. How does the rav see the role of a shul rav in being mechanech a child?
I hope it's not presumptuous to say that part of the obligations or mission statement of the rav is to help be mechanech a mishpacha. Not in a overt, direct sense, but the atmosphere and the messages that's created in shul and the kehillah should serve as helpful aids in being mechanech a mishpacha. So indirectly, one affects, hopefully, sends good messages to each child, the boys and the girls. Of course, if the Rav himself has a shir and he's a Maggid shir with his Talmidim, that role is much more direct, one-on-one, even if it's a shir, but it's with the Talmidim, and the material and the interaction is of a different nature. But the real tafkid of the Rav, if things are happening right, is one of helping fathers and mothers be the mechanchim that they're supposed to be.
Okay. I agree with what Rabbi Gelman said, and both of us fit both roles, and we're both Rabbeim in Yeshiva, and we're Rabbonim, and if we combine it right, it can lead to great success. There are some trappings, though. So, sometimes I can speak to myself. I have to remember, hey, now he's 14, he's 15. He's not the same child he was when he was 4 and 5. And then there's something else. The Bacher needs his space. There's the idea of his two separate worlds collide on Shabbos, right, when there's Rebbe and there's the Rav, and Rebbe is Rebbe and the Rav is the Rav, and those relationships require sometimes two different attitudes.
That's the question I'd love to get to. I know that this year's campaign, ytt.edu, is very much focused on success, kikari v'lecha, attainability. Every child can make it, and every child can succeed. And there's almost a convergence of two worlds. There's the classroom, the Blat Gemara, Rashi, Taisus, depending on what the Rebbe is teaching. And then there's Yiddishkeit. That means the shul is supposed to give over a certain flow of inspiration. And a lot of times, sometimes there's a conflict, or just sometimes they're coming from two different worlds. There's a cultural part of Yiddishkeit that comes through the shul or through other events. What is the job of the classroom Rebbe in terms of streamlining all of that? Extracurricular programs or things that are going on in Klal Yisrael outside of the classroom?
Maybe Rabbi
the marriage of the shul and the classroom.
I like following. I'm a rebound guy. The job of a classroom Rebbe is to get the Bachrim, the boys, to enjoy being in the classroom. So to say it's this, it's that, each boy is different, each Rebbe is different, and I love the word you use it for. The magic has to be different, for each magician. And I don't want we think of the boys as the person we put in the box when we're sewing. But, everybody's different. This boy and this bacher might need something extracurricular. This bacher might be annoyed with the extracurricular. No, I want to hear Gemara. This boy want to say, oh, I love the Musar. This boy want to say, oh, I enjoy the halacha. And the job and the expertise of a Rebbe has to be to give each one what he needs without alienating the other one.
Is that possible?
Is it possible? Yes, it's possible.
How is it possible?
Because there are many days to the year, and not every single day is going to be contoured to each bacher. And after a few days, maybe weeks. Bachrim who are mature realize it, and Bachrim who aren't mature have to be told it and taught it.
So just to bring out the mashal, there are many days in the year. But that means the kid's not going to eat for a few days. If his thing is halacha, or hashkafa, or nach.
No, there's halacha, hashkafa, and gemara every day. The question is how we balance it.
And you're making the cheshbon of every kid in the class, similar to what you do in shul with your balabatim when you speak.
I'm supposed to.
I want to be mefarish, something that Rabbi Posey said, because I don't want him to be misunderstood. When he said that the job of the Rebbe is to make sure that the Talmud enjoys the class, what he means, I believe, and if I'm learning wrong pshat, please correct me, he's not talking in entertainment terms or in campish terms. I take the liberty of saying that because I've had many conversations with Rabbi Posey on these topics. We mean that the bacher should enjoy himself, should be happy with himself in the classroom. The classroom is serious business, and the classroom is supposed to give him serious skills, serious Yerushalayim, Hashkafa, skills and learning, so that he could become the biggest Talmud Chacham that he possibly can come. Zisha soll werden Zisha, and not become someone else. And when a boy senses that he's becoming his best self, that's when he begins to enjoy literally himself. He enjoys himself. Otherwise, boy, he'll be unhappy.
But I'm going to be Mufarish, Rabbi Gelder's Pirish, possibly. I don't know why anybody would ever think that when I say a boy should be happy, it means he should be entertained, and he should
enjoy.
Enjoy. Simchas HaTorah certainly means enjoyment. The fact that anybody would think not that way is coming from, I think, something ulterior. I agree with Rabbi Gelder. I always agree. I mostly always agree with what Rabbi Gelder says, and it's true that the boy should be happy with himself. But I feel that if the boy is happy in the shiur room, with the shiur, with the Rebbe, eventually he'll become happy with himself. I'm not...
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I was just, I just wanted to make sure that in the
yeah. But again, let's take a step back to a shul mashal. It's become a trend somewhat in the world of shuls. A lot of shuls go on trips. They go a lot of times away with the Rav. It's meant to reveal a different dimension, maybe, to the social aspect of the shul, or to get to see the Rav in a different setting and bring out different kaiches that he has or messages that he has. And I'm saying that even before I get to the question, the premise of the question.
So I would like, if I can't interrupt, because the premise is that when people go to the shul, that's where they get to know the Rav and they get to spend time with the Rav. So Rabbi Geldworth is in his shul from 7 o'clock in the morning till like at least 11:45 at night, because I speak with him at 7 o'clock in the morning and 11:45 at night. He is accessible for anybody in the members of his shul to have that connection, have that kesher. Why that needs to be in a different time zone
it's not the time zone. It might be the setting, sitting on a bus and someone's playing guitar maybe, or you're at a caver and you're hearing stories. There's different
so you mean
dimensions to a person that
letting his hair down?
I didn't use that expression. No,
I'm using that expression.
The Rav in the 9 to 5 type of what the position calls for, answering shilas, discussing, calls for one hanhaga, being on the road, not letting their hair down, which just shows different. I never knew he knows so much about history. I never knew he's so musical. I never know he's so, I don't know.
So that's what I was trying to say. If at least with this Rav, if you'll spend that time shul, you will.
This is not about me.
Besides the musical part, you'll know everything else. I think that it leads to a different issue, which we'll go off topic with. That everybody needs to escape to become real. Right. What's wrong with being real in reality?
I mean, you don't take your bachrim away for Shabbos upstate?
I do.
Why?
Because they're bachrim, they're a bachrim, and that's a great way for them to get a kesher with a Rebbe.
Do you see a te'elis in that Shabbos?
There's absolutely te'elis in the Shabbos.
How do you define it?
Because there they get to spend quality time with a Rebbe when there's more of a downtime and relaxed atmosphere.
And why a balabatim?
Because the Rav has that initial, and balabatim are mature enough, I would hope, that they can see that in the shul. There's no, I love the trips, don't get me wrong, because they might be necessary. People need vacations, and they're dehoibin vacations. But I think those connections can be got in the shul.
I agree with that. I mean, this is really a completely different topic that's getting away from schools and so on. But
I'd like to bring it back to school.
Yeah,
I'm
so
headed somewhere.
and yeshivas. But the premise of equating bachrim with married fathers and large mishpachas and so on and so forth, and perhaps doing a bachrisha trip and expedition with all its milas, but the premise somehow, I think, downgrades Sai the Balabas and Sai the Rav. And what the Rav should be able to give his Kehillah and what the Kehillah should seek for in the Rav should, as Rabbi Posey put it classically, does not require a different time zone. Hagam, that there could be a Maila there. But that shouldn't be essential to creating those kind of relationships and awarenesses.
Okay, fair. Now let's follow to another question.
Yeah.
So the premise of the question with its discussion, but the Torah, the outgrowth of this question was that it's understood that sometimes a different setting. So my question is success really attainable, or is it on the Rebbe to try to create either artificial or far-seeing routes that will lead to lead to success? We say success is attainable. It's a nice cliche, and really, it's not a cliche. It's a pasuk. It's a reality. But what does that mean in practical terms? If you're making a basketball team, not every kid who comes in is going to be able to hit the same shot. What does it mean in practical terms in the classroom?
Well, if you're going to use the basketball team analogy, so you don't want everybody to be the center, you don't want everybody to be the point guard, and you don't want everybody to be the power forward. But if we're going to give that analogy, the Rebbe has to be lahavdil, that coach that brings out each one's talents to have a cohesive team.
Can I stay with that mashal for a second? I think that for some bachrim, the basket has to be lowered and the ball has to be a little smaller.
Or bigger.
Or bigger. And that is part of mapping the success for each Talmud. In other words, there's two things here. Frequently is quoted, the Vilna Gaon in Mishlei, on Chanoich Lana al Pidakoi, Gam Ki Yaskin Lo Yosem Mimena, that the Gaon is Medayik, Chanoich Lana al Pidar Koi, not al Pidar Derech of the Rebbe. And we have a master plan, but each boy needs his own derech. But the truth is the pasuk is talking to a father and a son, and not to a rebbe in a classroom of 30 talmidim. That's unattainable. But every rebbe in his mind should have his bar of success for each talmid. He can't make that map on the first day, but by a few weeks into the season, into the Zman, he should know what his personal goals are for this Talmud, and when it's appropriate, share it with the Talmud and the parents. If it needs extra curricula or outside help, try to attain it. If it's achievable in the classroom, try to set it up. But not everybody, the passing mark, we're used to old standards. Everyone has the same passing mark, 65, 70. For this bacha, but you can't do it with those marks, so therefore you have to lower the basket. His bechina might not have to be the same bechina as someone else's.
I'm just curious, probably teaching for a number of years already. Was it always like that?
A number of years.
A number of years. I thought there was an elegant way to say it.
Yes.
Was it always like that, or was that something that evolved?
No, it was not always like that. Absolutely not. But I think with time and with various necessities, this has developed.
So you need a Rebbe who's able to adapt as well.
If a Rebbe cannot adapt to the changes that are happening,
the people who are
it can be a problem.
People who are admiring and appreciating the work at Yeshiva Temimah, YTT.edu, obviously understand that this is a yeshiva that's constantly.
We're not allowed to use the word, but I think what Rabbi Gelder is saying is that there's a certain evolution that exists within the world of chinuch, with of course sticking to the core, and every Rebbe has to be able to evolve like that.
Can I?
There's the Chassam Sofer says, "Binu shnois dar v'dar." You should understand the shinuyim of every single generation.
The Chassam Sofer, father of unchangingness.
Yeah.
Wow.
But changing within the unchanging.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, I want to be. I hope I'm saying it correctly. Others say it over the name of Sfasemes, but I think I once saw it in the Chassam Sofer. But
Wow. Can I ask a very politically incorrect question? Is that okay?
you just did.
Please.
Great. One more. Everybody in any demographic where there's Shomer Torah Mitzvahs is teaching in a school, there's always going to be another school. To the right, to the left. I live in Montreal, not a very big city. There's also two schools. That's the nature. So on one hand, we say the Rebbe should lower the basket. At the other hand, there's always the consciousness, even if it's not in the Rebbe's mind, but whoever's responsible for this ma'aser and making sure that it retains, I wouldn't say it's superiority, but it retains its prestige or its respect, wants to keep the level. So tonight, our Bachurim finished, our Bachurim know, our Bachurim mastered. How do you balance the sensitivities between, like any service provider, like Verizon and AT&T, you have to provide a service and make your customers happy. At the same time, you really have to service the boy. So there's two demographics who you're servicing at once.
So you have to understand, I deal, and we deal really, with Mesifta Bachrim and older. So there, when a Bachar comes in, you do have, for L'Tayelas HaBachar and L'Tayelas HaYeshiva, there has to be as best a homogeneous shear as there can be. So, of course, we're not always perfect, and a class is made up of the class that it is. But you have to concentrate on that, otherwise there is a limit to the Rebbe's ability to, and I have to be careful using this word, because I heard recently from Reb Shimon Olster that juggling is the improper word when it comes to, Dvarim Shebekdusha. When one juggles, he's not holding on to all of the balls at once. You have to hold on to all of the balls at once. You're limited in that you have to make sure that within the panorama of the Bachrim, there's something that is Shavel L'Chol Nefesh. So when Rabbi Geldrith says, and we agree, lowering the basket, that means lowering it from 10 feet to 9.3 inches, 9 feet and 3 inches, not to 4 feet. It's not going to happen.
I want to be properly understood. Lowering the basket is a metaphor for bending down to the boy and then raising him up. We don't want to keep him at the lower basket. We want him to recognize and learn the skills. Now he knows how to...
So it's not a veto on excellence.
No.
It's a means to excellence.
Now he knows how, at his size and age, to take a layup, which he won't be able to do with the higher basket. As he grows, and as we grow him, we raise the basket again. I just meant to say, in setting goals at the beginning of the Zman, the goal is not to lower the basket. The method is to go. And again, that's just a mushal. Go ahead.
Rabbi Saul, just not to completely disagree, but the premise of what you're saying, I think, is one of the problems, where there's some sort of a behavior that's been accepted in this generation that it's a shver dor, so we have to pick them up. It's a shvach dor. And I think if we start teaching them, you're not a shveradar, you're not a shvachadar, there's more Torah that's being learned now than since the time of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And we're allowed to say, as Rabbi Gelder said, we got to get that message and then raise them up and say, you're there. You can be groisim mitzuyonim in everything. We have all the kalim and all the capabilities to do it.
Sometimes feel, just the way you're saying it, that this perception of it's a shvachadar or a weakadar, the boys don't think that. It's maybe the parents would think that, and maybe the parents are...
Well, we have to tell them that it's not true. That's our job.
I don't know. I think the unauthorized speakers,
sending that message?
Self-appointed experts, people who have to write an article and creating some extra interest by being sensational. I think what Rabbi Posey said is absolutely true. Our Dor has challenges that previous Doros didn't have, and I'm sure everybody in every Dor said that. The challenges are enormous. but that doesn't mean that the dar is shvach. The fact that in a dar like this, with all the distractions and allurements that exist, that you have thousands of bachrim ala Torah v'ala avodah learning k'tsois be'iyun, from Lakewood to Muncie to Brooklyn to Passaic and around the country, is a Kiddush Hashem nifla, and tells you the strength of the dar, that despite all of that, they're rejecting it. Sometimes they're struggling with it, but basically they're rejecting it and looking for help in that rejection. So I agree with Rabbi Posey. This is an extraordinary dar.
Forget the term Schwachkeit or judging gauging the dar. Let's talk about an approach in parenting, maybe that shifted a little bit, where the parents, the term that people use is helicopter parenting, which means I need to take care of my child. That means it's not such a safe world. It's maybe even an unsafe world. And parents are worried, and my child is hungry, and my child is tired. So, Baruch Hashem, we're not living in Kelm anymore or in Varsha, and I can send my child food in school or whatever it is. He's learning. He's a gesunter kid, but he needs to eat. Come on, that's normal. What is the take of the Rebbeim? You familiar with Uber Eats?
Yes. I see. The guy, every yeshiva should have a motorcycle stand for the Uber Eats guy that's showing up.
To come. But the kids are hungry. The mother loves her son. He's hungry. He's learning a long day. He's learning good. Let him. He's learning Chayes. Let him have a schnitzel sandwich.
It's a very broad question. It depends how often, how much, what, where.
That means within reason, with balance. It's something that a mother's expression of love.
I like how you said we're not living in Kelm. We're not living in Brooklyn in 1957 and 1967 and 1987. We're living where we're living.
Where hunger was a real issue for Yeshiva. Baruch Hashem, that's not the situation.
Yeah, but you have to remember, when I was a Bachur in Yeshiva, we weren't hungry, and the Yeshiva's food was what we had, because we didn't have other options. There are other options. Should they be cold? Of course they should be. We have to teach them not to have everything that you want is not instantaneously going to be yours. There's truth to that. But every once in a while, something wrong with a parent saying, you know what, Shefala, you're doing well in yeshiva, let me send you something.
Do you find that parents are weaker in that thing and being able to refuse their children or build up their children's real resilience?
I want to mention two things. I happen to know B'Yediyah from the person that Reb Shlomo Zalman Zechat Tzaddik told it to. A yeshiva has to provide good enough meals, and Reb Shlomo Zalman spent money out of his pocket to every Rosh Chodesh to give $100 to his son Reb Shmuel's yeshiva, Zechat Tzaddik, for what he called pikana zachen, delicacies for the bachrim, so that no bachur should have to go out of the yeshiva building to buy a nash. So he provided it. He believed in that very strongly. However, the tastes and the standards have exploded. And what you mentioned, it's not appropriate to mention names, but two of the best Talmidim I ever had used to come from Manhattan every single day to Torah Temimah and took the trains. They didn't come by car service, they came by trains. I was nervous for them, but their father and mother felt, no, this is the way, and they turned out to be mamash splendid, and you know them. I'll tell you later who they are. Exceptional Talmidei Chachamim, and they did. We understand. I myself am a parent who would be terribly nervous. I couldn't do what this Yid did with his children. I just couldn't. But it's a balance. It's a balance. Reb Chaim Brisker once said to a parent who was constantly hovering over their child and asking how this child is doing, he said, "You remind me of the farmer who pulls out the new planted shrub to see if it's making roots."
You're talking about a father, you're talking about a mother. A father worries about how his son is doing. There's a certain reality check he can do. Tell him to sit down and learn with his son. He'll see how he's doing. That's not a helicopter or hovering.
That's father.
Right? That's a father.
That's Vishanantam.
That's Vishanantam. A mother, sometimes, hovering is a little rough and helicoptering is a little rough. a drone maybe, check on them, see how they're doing. Everything has to be within balance. You don't want to be the other way where, what? Why didn't you tell me?
There's a reason that people listen to conversations like this, is because they want hadracha, they want to understand the approach of what's too much. Talk about the evolution of Rebbeim. You mentioned the father and the mother have different roles. There are those who have said that the Rebbe...
Can you phrase that differently, the evolution of Rebbeim?
Progress.
That's on me.
Okay, I don't want anyone to say they were Neanderthal Rebbeim.
The way Rebbeim have progressed with the needs and the demands of the time, there are those who say that the Rebbe, the classroom Rebbe, has gone from being just a father to a father and a mother. That means being much more emotionally available to the emotional needs of the child, the problems, listening to them. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Has that been an easy adaptation? That means has it meant learning new skills? The Rebbe has to be trained. There are classes that they give Rebbeim to detect.
So first off, and I think Rabbi Geldert and I have had so many conversations about this, there are courses and there are classes, but either you got it or you don't. That's Aleph. And Beis is that it's true, and as you mentioned, both of us are Rabbonim, there's a pastoral aspect that used to only exist by a Rav. A Rebbe needs that now. But a Rebbe also has to know not to overstep his bounds. Because a Rebbe has to appreciate that the parents are the parents. And sometimes he has to remind the parents of that, and he has to do it very gingerly, because the boy goes home and the parents get the last word of the day.
It's a very nice take.
But yes, a Rebbe is more involved and is more in tune. A Rebbe has to know what's going on in the world too. He has to know that this boy might be under some sort of a pressure, might be under some sort of a fear that he might need to address, and know when, by the way, he can't address it, and send it to the people that can address it.
Well,
I think the way you phrased the question, do the Rebbeim today have to evolve in this method? I agree with Rabbi Posey as far as the courses. The courses can give the natural, gifted mechanech some mechanics, some ideas, but they won't create the mechanech. The one who most creates the great Rebbe, his real teacher, is his Talmud. The Talmidim teach us how much they need us or don't need us. And we should take the signals. The Doris, once upon a time, Bachrim saw the Rebbe as a lecturer, especially those of us who had European Rebbeim and so on. The Talmidim have created this demand that they need to sometimes...
Rebbe needs a lot of humility to be open to reading those signals.
He needs sensitivity above everything. And that sensitivity, of course, includes humility. And to recognize, a Rebbe should be aware. Rav Shach, Zechon Levracha, told that when he was in Slobodka, he saw a remarkable thing. In the middle of Shemoneh Esrei, the Alta stepped out, walked over to a Bacha among 300 Bachrim, and took him out of the Beis Medrash in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei. And they disappeared for a few hours. Came back. What was the story? The Alta was standing Shemoneh Esrei and he heard a cough. Of his 300 Bachrim, he recognized whose cough that was. He felt it was deeply bronchial, and in those days, pre-antibiotics, pre-penicillin, I should say, and Sakanas Nefashis. And he stepped out of Shemoneh Esrei and went straight, a beeline to that Bacha, and took him out to the doctor. The Talmud teaches the Rebbe, and if the Talmud doesn't understand Ven Yov Ven Ish, so then the Rebbe again is the Rebbe and teaches the Talmud Ven Yov Ven Ish.
Wow. I wouldn't say the Talmud teaches the Rebbe. The Talmud hones the Rebbe. He schleifs the Rebbe.
But the Rebbe's ears have to be open to hearing that cough.
If they're not open to hearing that cough, then they're a lecturer. They're not a Rebbe.
Today, but.
We don't need lecturers. We have some, right? There's Torah anytime. I haven't seen yet Rebbe anytime. Right?
Amazing. Thank you for this. ytt.edu.
Torah ve'elecha, it is in your hands. That's our goal. When the boys see this is a yeshiva that cares for my success, they really care. And it makes, Rebbe gets happy. The Manal gets excited when I succeed. They want to please, they want to do well.
Where does the Mayomer Abriyas come from that they say, wow, look at that Torah Temimah Talmud, Ashrei Rabbi Shalom de Torah, Ashrei Ovav Shalom de Torah? It comes from the environment. It comes from the Rabbeim that keep pushing and pushing them in the most gentle but effective of ways to become B'nai Torah.
Welcome to the live stream of Yeshiva Torah Temimah, YTT.edu, friends, admirers, alumni, talmidim of this magnificent yeshiva. It's a zchus to sit with two of the most illustrious personalities associated with the yeshiva. Rav Nosson Sherman, Shlita, a Manal, a long-time Manal in Yeshiva Torah Temimah, currently the general editor of Article Messiah, Simcha Kaufman. So Zayin Gesund,
a simple Rebbe.
A simple, active classroom Rebbe, 7th grade Rebbe in Yeshiva Torah Temimah. Even before we begin, I would love to ask a non-chinuch question. I heard right before we went live that you're
That's
very
the only
close
thing
friends.
I know. I've been out of chinuch for 45 years.
As one who is a constant recipient of your chinuch, I would beg to differ. Baruch Hashem. I heard that you're very good friends. I would want each of you, if I can ask, start
More
with
than
you,
very
Rabbi
good
Sherman.
friends.
Tell me what you consider Rabbi Kaufman's greatest attribute as a mechanech.
Rabbi Kaufman has been a mechanech probably well over 50 years, right?
Yes.
And he still has the vigor and the enthusiasm and the concern for Talmidim. I once heard a justice of one of the courts in New York State. He said, when the first time he had to sentence somebody to death, there was a death penalty, he couldn't sleep at night. Then he was able to sleep at night. And then after many years, it just didn't bother him anymore. He decided it's time to retire. Rav Simcha, I hope Simcha never retires. He still has that energy and the verve and the ability to relate to Talmidim.
Gesundheit. Rabbi Kaufman, tell us, what do you consider Rabbi Sherman's greatest attribute in making him so impactful?
I'm a great liar.
His greatest attribute is that he was a großer Mensch. He's a big person, and he's a wild person, has a wide aspect of looking at things, and that's who he is.
That's very nice. So let's jump to that. We talk about people, the Rebbeim, or people in any profession who are 35 years old, and they're just retired. They're checked out. They're burnt out. And then there are people, Baruch Hashem, who are able to go a long time, and you don't see that. What is the site? What's the secret? Bama harachta yamim. How are you able to?
I think the secret is if you have a love for what you're doing, I think that's what keeps you going. And
is that a natural love? Is that a thing you have to cultivate?
That's a good question. I can't really answer that.
But it's there.
I don't think you could cultivate it. I think a lot of it has to be inborn. And I think that makes a big difference in why today, quote, they're trying to train Rebbeim and everything else. In my days, we said either you got it or you don't got it. And that's what
I think
really
that's still
boils
true,
down
but
to.
even the ones who got it need training. I don't think that. Rabbi Sherman?
Rabbi Margolis, who was our Menahel in Rosh Yeshiva for many years, Shrem Livrocha, he once said, if you give me a mensch, I can train him to be a Rebbe. You give me a Rebbe, I can't train him to be a mensch.
Wow.
That's as Rav Simcha says. You have to have it. You have to have it in you. Your Shemaim helps a lot. Also, you're serving the Rebbeinu Shalom. Rabbi Yisrael Reisman, Yeshiva Torah V'das, who was our Talmud. We both had him, and he once spoke to Rav Pam, who was his Rebbe Muvik. When before he became Rosh Yeshiva, he was teaching the same Masechta year after year. And he said to Rav Pam, but you get tired of it. It's the same thing over and over again. Rav Pam said, but the Talmidim are different. That has to be the attitude. You're serving the Rebbeinu Shalom. Yeah, but that's not enough. You have to feel that you're serving Talmidim, and every single one is a nefesh, and he's important to you.
I would love to know from your perspective in the classroom and in the base medrash of life, Baruch Hashem, where you're zeicher to teach, what has been the single biggest change in the demographic you're trying to reach over the years that you've been teaching?
Well, the Talmidim definitely have changed. And I would say, unfortunately, it's due to the surroundings of the era that we're living in today that has changed so many of them in more respects than one. Not only in their learning, to get through to them that you're learning Torah Hashem, the words you're reading is everlasting from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's not from a separate book, something else. A Kodesh Baruch Hu is talking to you. That idea is very difficult to get through to them today, but we try. And the whole avir that they're living in has made a major change in their learning.
And you've seen that.
Oh, yes.
So what does that mean
Unfortunately.
for a rabbi? What do you...
For a Rebbe, that means he has to always be machadesh things, but not like the chiddush of what I see happening today, where they're gearing away from the Torah the way our Avos taught us, and they're trying to come up with, quote, new approaches, modern approaches, and thinking this will be makav the Talmidim more. It won't. You got to stick to the Messiah of the Avos, and that's what I found is the most important thing that can attract Talmidim. I think Talmidim know that Dvar Mayotzim in Alev, Nechnosim in Alev, and they could feel it. They could feel it, and they'll tell it to you.
Rosh Hashanah?
I agree with everything Rav Simcha said. There's one thing I met somebody about 25 years ago. I don't know his name, I never met him before, but we had both started out in chinuch around the same time. And he said, when we started out, which goes a long time ago, when we started out, the parent was afraid of the Rebbe, and the Talmud was afraid of the parent. Today, the Rebbe is afraid of the parent, and the parent is afraid of the child.
Wow.
There's a feeling today that children have to be happy. And when the kid comes home, my Rebbe said, and my Rebbe, they become hysterical. I mean, I have a son who's a master mechanech, and he gets calls sometimes from mothers and from fathers also. Why did you say this to my son? You know, even Trump was innocent until proven guilty. You know, the Rebbe has to be innocent and proven guilty. Give him the benefit of the doubt.
Parents are quick to
The
jump.
Rebbe's concerned with the child.
Now,
He's a professional.
the Baruch Hashem, if both of you in your respective arenas are Baruch Hashem bringing that energy, it's clearly because you've seen that it's not all gloom and doom. Tell me some of the positive changes in teaching today's Dara, some of the things that you didn't used to see, that you see today, that you appreciate.
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
There's more professionalism today. Give you an example. Many years ago, Rabban Kotler, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, was speaking in Eretz Yisrael, and he's speaking to Rosh Yeshiva, Mechanechim, and he's felt that there should be some sort of a moisa to train Mechanechim. Rav Shlomo Lawrence, who was a confidant of the Brisker Rov, member of the Knesset for many years, chairman of the Finance Committee, and nobody ever had a complaint against him, except that he was too frum. He said he thinks that the Brisker Rov feels otherwise. So Brian said, come, let's go right away to the Brisker Rov. Rav Lawrence took him to the Brisker Rov, and the two of them spoke privately, and it was a heated conversation. And Rabban came out, and he said, I have to go back to the Asifa. He went back, and he got up on the bima again, and he said he spoke to the Brisker Rov. The Brisker Rov is opposed to what I said. I withdraw. Today, everybody agrees that Rebbeim have to have some training. And Baruch Hashem, it helps. But as Rav Simcha said before, if you're a Rebbe, the training can help you. If you're not a Rebbe, if you don't have what it takes, if you don't have the love for the Talmidim, it won't help.
I very much appreciate
There's
that.
another
but-
thing too. There's another thing also. You have to be able to explain something to make it clear. Just talking above the head of the Talmidim, it won't work. Obviously, it can't work. You have to be able to explain things, and not everybody has that talent. You can be a tremendous Talmid Chacham, you can know the Gemara inside out, but if you're not able to communicate it on a child's level, one of the great compliments that I had as a Melamed was I had a Talmud whose father was one of Baron Kotler's Talmidim in Europe, and he was in Lakewood after the war. And this was seventh grade. And he told Rabbi Margolis that he's amazed at how well his son understands the Gemara. So I was able to explain the Gemara in such a way that the father, who was a tremendous Talmid Chacham,
Appreciate
could
it.
appreciate the way his son understood the Gemara.
I very much appreciate it. Just to, maybe I wasn't clear. The question I'm asking is, I want to know a positive change in the children of today, a mila that they have. That means, I understand that the chinuch system is more sophisticated than it was. I'm asking, what do you see in the children of today?
If you're saying something positive you want.
Something that is, Baruch Hashem, you're able to do it. Baruch Hashem, you're going into the classroom and you're seeing Hatzlacha, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. So how do you understand? It's a rough world out there. Like you said, there's a lot of challenges, and they're coming in and they're learning. What is that from? Where is that? How is that? Temimah is a special yeshiva. YTT.edu. But Baruch Hashem, every yeshiva is special. And every yeshiva, you see that as well. How do you understand that? Ach Shadara, in what way?
Given the limited attention span today, Talmidim can't concentrate for very long. That's in general society, it's not just in yeshivas. But they want to know. They want to learn. They have problems in concentration, and they're easily distracted, but they want to learn, and they're proud to be B'nai Torah.
Yeah. Do you find that as well,
You
Rabbi
find that
Kaufman?
as
I would say they want to learn, those who really want to learn. And I would
Maybe
say,
say they want to know rather than they want to learn.
Seventh grade is a hard age. They're not there yet, most of them,
yeah,
right?
but when you give them the feeling of what a word of Torah means, you see that ahava comes out of them, and they get excited when you compliment them, and the way they explain the Gemara to them, as Rabbi Sherman said. And perhaps that's something that draws them in today. Otherwise, it's really very difficult.
Who taught you, if I may ask, what a word of Torah means?
Who taught me? I don't think I get to remember way back, but certainly my Rabbi Rav Shamek, Tzaddik Levracha, and Rav Hanach Leibowitz, they taught you what Torah really
Torah
was.
means.
They were unique. They really taught you what Torah is. They taught you what a mensch is. They taught you what life is all about. And
Who is the
They
single, I would love to know from each of you, who is the single greatest machanech that you ever saw? A role model of chinuch that you would consider?
It's hard to answer that question because there are many different roles. One of the best rebbeim that I ever had was my sixth grade rebbe. I can tell you the story that I will never forget about him. And then Rav Pam made he's my 11th grade rebbe. He made the impression as the Tzaddik Tamim. Rav Shor Zichron Livracha, whom I felt close to, and I always regret that I did not become even closer. Rav Shor showed the love of Torah, the brilliance and concern for individual Talmidim. For example, just one example. he had a Talmud who was Yosem. He had lost his father, and Rav Shor took him to the jeweler to buy the ring for the Kala because he wouldn't know what to do. And then I was close to Rabbi Yankiv. Rabbi Yankiv was the Kulei Torah. Rabbi Mendelovich, Rav Shraga Feivel, once spoke about Rebbe Kedama Malach Elikim, and the Talmud asked him, "Is there anybody in Torah V'das who's like that?" And he paused and he said, "It's a chutzpah to ask such a question, but since you asked such a question, then I have to answer you. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky does not do anything that does not have a mokar in Chazal or in Shulchan Aruch." So these are all. I could speak about other rebbeim also. I never had a rebbe that I didn't love and appreciate.
Wow.
Not that I learned that much from them.
Very careful.
Rav Yitzchak Karp, Zechron Levracha, I still remember now, as I recall, was my 10th grade rebbe in Torah V'das. And he was a son-in-law of Bar Shraga Feivel
He was my
Mendelovich.
ninth grade rebbe.
Right? And he was really somebody who, I must say, I loved him so much that when he came the next year in Torah V'das and they wanted to promote me to the next rebbe, I went at the time to Rav Shlomo Levracha and I said, "I don't want to go, I want to stay back here another year." And he asked me why, and I explained, because this Rebbe, you feel mamish that he loves you. He was a Rebbe that we all came Friday night back to learn. In those days, you didn't come to learn Friday night by Rebbe. You weren't so famous today. And we all came back to Torah V'das to learn with him. And I really loved him because I really felt that he cared for a Talmud. That's the word I did.
It's beautiful. The theme of this
Yes.
event, of the live stream, is success, attainability. Kikarei v'elecha.
Right.
How is it possible? Everybody needs different success. Every child at the supper table has different tastes. How could they all succeed at once if you're serving one dish?
It depends how you're serving the one dish. When I'm teaching the one dish, I'll direct to every child what he really needs. And they won't even realize it, that I'm doing it. But every child
Two
gets a
people's
different-
success can meet
Correct.
in different ways.
Correct, absolutely. And I see it every day. I mean, I see it, I practice that. So that's how it works.
That's the kunst of a really great rebbe, to be able to reach everyone in the class on their own level. Because you have to. You're a rebbe. You have to repeat things. Every time you repeat it, could be in a different way, a different nuance, different knetch, so that the very bright kid will feel that it's not, "Oh, I heard this already before." And at the same time, the weaker Talmud will be able to get a better understanding of it.
And the week at Talmud, when you give a test, Moshe Rabbeinu gives the same test for the entire class. It's not really fair. The weaker child, he can't do it. Give him a different test, or give
You
him.
will give different tests?
Do I give different tests?
Yeah, give a different test at different kids?
No, not different tests, but I will give it different questions. In other words, I'll tell him just do 2 and 3. Do you have to all of them? And just do 3. You get these right, you got 100.
And you don't worry that the child will feel bad, he'll get low
He
self-esteem
doesn't
from
feel,
being told.
just the opposite, he feels great. He feels great. People always are worried about that. You're classifying him as a weak student. No. You know how to do it. You speak to them, and they get the message. They love it.
Because they
love
feel
it.
like you believe in their
Right,
ability
you're
to...
trusting them, right.
Rashad?
I found also as I got more experience as a rebbe, as a malamed, I would make the test so that everybody could get 75, 80. But to get a high mark, you really had to know. So, with very rare exceptions, a bacher did not go away feeling that he flunked.
Right.
But there are people who say that I'm not saying that this is true, but you tell a kid, "Oh, you're a guy, and you're the gadol hador," you go to bar mitzvah, and everybody's, "True, that pshatel." Since the Shagasai, nobody ever spoke like you did. And we give kids a certain inflated sense of, because we're so worried about them, and then real life happens, and they find out they're good. What are your thoughts on that? I see from your smile.
That's right, because I've heard that, and it's just not right when the people blow up a kid and say he's the next.
What's the art of giving a compliment versus giving criticism?
You have to know how to give the compliment. and how to give constructive criticism. You have to know how to do it, how to speak to a child.
There's still a place for criticism in chinuch.
Constructive criticism, absolutely, and the boy will take it the proper way. He'll
You
take
don't
it
see
the
that
proper way.
they
Not if
crumple
you-
up?
No, not when you speak to him and you made that level of the relationship with him. You don't see that at all. No. If you scream at him, something else, different story.
With few exceptions, a Rebbe could be strict. As long as he's fair, kids can take it. Psychologists will tell you that when there's a lack of discipline in the home, then in the long run, children resent it. They want to be directed. They want to have a measure of discipline. Now, a Rebbe, if the class knows that the Rebbe there's no teacher's pet, he treats everyone the same, then, as Reb Simcha said, you know how to give a compliment, you know how to give a criticism, it works. But you know, as Reb Simcha said when we started, chinuch is an art, not a science. You can train and you can tell them, the paperwork and I hated paperwork because I didn't find it to be constructive. Also, I was lazy. I didn't feel like doing all that paperwork. But it's an art. Understand the Talmud and speak to the Talmud on his level and what he can accept.
What would you say about we're living in dangerous times or frightening times? There are those who say you have to shield the kid from an awareness of what's going on. It'll make them nervous, it'll make them anxious. And others say Yid has to know, he has to be mishtatef and what Klal Yisrael is going to, he needs to daven, you need to expose him, they're going to know it anyhow. What's called overexposure, what's called underexposure?
I have heard that argument or complaint by some people of younger children, but certainly, the upper grades, and even younger grades to a degree, we're overprotective from our children. They're going to know what's going on in the world, and they should know what's going on in the world, and they should know Klal Yisrael has problems, and they should be saying Tehillim, and they should figure that soldiers on the front now, and you're saying one pasuk chumash, or you're saying a few lines of Gemara. You know what that does to protect that kid? And they will listen to you every word. You can hear a pin drop in the classroom when you say it. And when you say the Perek Tehillim after that, you feel that you've reached them. And therefore, I wouldn't say what they were saying to protect our kid. You're scaring him and all this. No,
So you work hard in your classroom to connect them
Correct.
with the wider reality of Klal Yisrael.
That's correct.
I feel very strongly, kids are overprotected today. Parents want their children to be happy. There's such a thing as being too happy. They should know what's going on. They should know that they're suffering. A kid shouldn't feel that the worst thing that can happen is if he loses a game.
Right.
You can lose a game. Other people lose their lives. They lose limbs. We're
not doing them a service because there's
No,
anxiety is real
we are not.
and panic is real and it's, like I said, it's a scary world. You don't want a kid to lie in bed at night unable to sleep or scared to walk home from yeshiva alone. We're balancing real.
You don't tell a child all the gory details of October 7th, but you can tell them that people are being killed. Listen, most kids today, much as we try to shield them and protect them, if they ever watch a TV program, they know that people get killed all the time, and they survive.
I feel 100%, as Rabbi Sherman said. I have never seen a child coming into class and he's nervous and he's upset like the parents make out of it. He can't sleep at night. I don't think that's really true.
A lot of the yeshivas, even the traditional flagship yeshivas like Temimah, YTT.edu, to be part of this live stream, to log in, to support, and to be part of the Temimah family so many years, have introduced what we would call more of a camp culture, singing in the classroom. I'm not saying that it wasn't traditional in the yeshivas as well. I think in Torah Vadas probably there's more of a room for ruach. It wasn't only. How do you see that development as a positive thing? There are Rebbeim who play ball with students in the classroom. That's important to them. They feel that that's necessary today. How do you view
Well, that again, it depends upon who you are and what you are and how you're a Rebbe. Singing with children, that's very good. That's a positive thing. That adds to ruach, that adds to Yiddishkeit, that's a mirais. Playing ball with children, that which I know a lot of Rebbeim do, That's already up in the air. There's pros and cons to playing ball with a Talmud. One way, you're usually part of him, but you're not his best friend. You're not a friend. You're a Rebbe. So I'm not so sure if a Rebbe has to get out there and play ball with the children, whether that's going to make a major difference in his learning. It could be. Some children may need that. They could. But other Rebbeim feel, no, I'm a Rebbe, and I'll take you to the ballpark, and I'll let you play, and I'll cheer you on, but I'm not going to play ball with you. But
I did play ball.
You played ball.
Yes, even though I've been out of chinuch for about 46 years, but I did play ball.
Because you felt...
A Rebbe has to be able to interact with kids on their level, but at the same time maintain his own dignity.
I assume
And
that
there's
you
such
were
a
good enough.
thing, which is what you were alluding to in your question. There's such things going too far. As a Rebbe shouldn't be a big brother.
Should not be a
No,
big
a
brother.
Rebbe should be a Rebbe.
Rebbe should be a Rebbe. In
There was
closing,
once an American intellectual who said, "I don't want to be my son's pal. I want to be his father."
beautiful.
Now you can overdo that,
Sure.
in the strictness part, but you can also overdo it in being his pal. Today, parents want to be their children's friends rather than parents.
There was, this is the final question, just to wrap it up. If there was one midah or value that you see in successful parents, that means parents who raised successful children over your years of chinuch, either an attitude or a midah or an approach, what would you say it is? What was the common denominator that you said this is a family that's going to be successful in chinuch with the family, with the children?
I think possibly one common denominator could be, which is very hard, is to be emes, to be truthful.
Emes.
And that's so hard today
Wow.
by most parents because of all the pressure they get from their children or from their peers or whatever it is. They're going away from the pure emes. We have to go back to the pure emes. Let's be honest with ourselves. Are you doing your best as a parent? Are you being a shutef, a partner to the Rebbe? Are you really giving it all you got? Or are you one of these people who say, I'm going to protect my child, and it's the Rebbe's fault, and it's everything else? You're not really being emes. If you're an emes person, then you will see everything come right
That's a
through.
nice answer. Rabbi Sherman, closing thought?
I agree. You have to show your children love and authority.
In that order.
There's no stira between love and authority.
But not authority and love and authority, in that order.
No, I mean, I don't care what order you put it in. You must have the combination. Children have to know that they are not miniature adults. They're children.
I thank you to more of the magic, the experience, the Messiah of Yeshiva Torah Temimah, YTT.edu. Thank you so much. The magic of Yeshiva Torah Temimah continues. YTT.edu. Log into the live stream. Take part. Parents, alumni, admirers, friends, people who wish they lived in Brooklyn so they could send their kids to Torah Temimah. So much insight we're hearing, so much wisdom, so much seichel. It's a pleasure to have Rabbi Armo Kasus, the Limudei Chel principal in Yeshiva Torah Temimah, and the head counsel of Camp Romumu. Correct. And Rabbi Yael Kaufman, son of the legendary Rabbi Simcha Kaufman, soll sein gesandt. The Manal of the elementary school in Yeshiva Torah Temimah and the head counsel of Camp Pagoda as well in the summer. Wow. Is there like a rivalry? Because like in the summer in the camps? No, good? You said Chas V'Shalom a little too quickly for me to
No, yeah, we actually played together, intercamp day.
play and everything's good?
We're always bouncing off ideas. We work together.
Beautiful.
Rabbi Kaufman is great.
Thank you for being here. We're going to pick up. We had discussed to sit with Rabbi Kaufman Senior just now. I would love to hear your take, and something tells me maybe it's a little bit different. And we were talking about the changing roles of a Rebbe, the evolution of a Rebbe into 2024. So your father was saying that he knows that there were Rebbeim who played ball with students, and Rabbi Sherman said that he was one of them. He doesn't know that that's something. He said it really has to work. You see that differently?
You know, it's interesting. It really depends on the setting of the yeshiva. Some places, if it's done in a kavadika way, if you have a sprawling field, I know like a Lakewood Meisters have Baruch Hashem fields, and Rebbe's out there on supervision watching, and Rebbe come on up to the bat, and a Rebbe has to make that decision on the spot. You could be in a gym with a basketball, and that one shot you make that shot, Tysus is a different Tysus following recess. But
the problem is that the Rebbeim, when they hit the shot, they always want to do another one. They don't hit that one.
They have to know when to stop.
It's interesting. What I see in yeshiva is that it really depends on the boy. There are certain boys that crave that and they really need that. And then there are certain boys that, it's interesting, they grow more from looking at the Rebbe with a roimamus. Wow, he's on a pedestal. Let me hear what he has to say. And as soon as the Rebbe starts dropping and he starts doing these more mundane things with him, he loses that roimamus of what Torah is all about.
An impossible situation because you have to serve supper to both these kids at the same table. The theme is success, attainability. It's almost a stira, it's almost a contradiction because two people need different things from you. How do you balance that?
Okay, I was makabel this from people much greater than me, that if the Rebbe cares and he really loves the Talmidim, you don't need this other, all these other venues of how to, this is going to attract him. There's one thing. Does Rebbe really care about me? When I miss breakfast and I come in late, is Rebbe concerned? If the Rebbe is concerned, the boy's buying into whatever that Rebbe is doing. He doesn't have to put on a cap and play basketball with him to get him, now Rebbe, I want to hear what you have to say.
That all this stuff is just ways to express that love. And if you can find a way to do that, then you agree with that?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to depend on the type of children. Some children, there's no question, they understand what that means to take from the roimus of a Rebbe. There's no question about that. But sometimes you have to know. It could be at the kind of a meister, the kind of an elementary school, or whatever it is you're handling with. That kind of a boy needs that. It really depends. I could see, if you're in a malkum that's a hecher, that the Torah is hecher, and there's steiging, and there's asmat, and it's a different chavershaft, the way the whole meister is built, then you're not going to go step out of the box and lower yourself down to chas v'shalom. You have to do if you don't have to do that. But sometimes day school or other places, it really depends on where you are. I don't think it's a stira to creating a roimus if by recess Rebbe loved you and connected with you that way. You come back to the classroom in front of the sefer, the roimus comes
back. Go back to bringing, to elevating them. We were talking now, and I would love to hear your take on this. They were talking obviously about Sherman and your father's gesund, a lot of combined experience. Things that are more difficult today. The mind and the hearts of the children have shrunken, or the attention span. And then, what are some of the milos of today's children? It can't just be that they're just worse than kids were 50 years ago. They're different. So that means that in some ways it's a bigger challenge, and in some ways probably they have certain strengths that weren't here. What would be some of the milos, some of the positive things of today's kids?
It's interesting. A milo today, I was recently discussing this. It used to be a sat in a classroom, and there was an AMA. Rebbe's Rebbe, it should always be that way, but a child didn't want to express his inners. Today, and I'm only using this word, chas v'shalom, not the context that it is, because that idea today, the woke and that whole mishagas is treif. But using it the other way, today children have awakened a little bit more, and they understand more about self, with all the therapies, all these different zachen. Children speak more. They want to talk more. So in Mela, when they open themselves and they can be more vulnerable, and there's a receiving end to say, you had a shayla, that's very interesting. Let's talk about that. You don't have to feel embarrassed. It used to be that way. I'm never going to say that. I can't say that. But I think today,
that's really a compliment to the Rebbeim as well. That children feel more able to talk to the Rebbeim, because Rebbeim have also learned that skill.
But today's child, I think, with what has happened is children are finding it that they can talk. Amal was a time that they just accepted it, what the instruction was, what the rule is, and they didn't want to say anything, or I don't want to show you what I'm thinking.
They weren't looking to the personal
If I
relationship.
chas
angle. Do
v'shalom
you find
to
that?
ask, emunah, b'tachin, how does that work? Bechira, really, how does that work?
And you
Where-
welcome those questions?
So that's a larger discussion, but you should everything should be welcome. You want to mechanech the child that's where he's at and try to help him. That's.
I'll tell you something interesting. There's a lot of negative talk about the fast-paced world that we live in, and everybody needs. But the one mile that came out of this fast-paced world is that when you get that kid going, he's going. You see, like, I think more than ever, kids are going, to learn at this time, and a kid is, and I'm not pushing the kids to do that or anything like that, but you see, like, when you get them going, they're going. There's a certain energy that they have because of this whole fast-paced world. Okay, I'm into Rebbe, how many times should I chazir and all of that thing? You're watching that happen.
Now, I'm curious, just while you're talking, there's a lot of extracurricular outside of the school programs going on in the world today. If it's learning program, if it's Shmiras Halashon programs, if it's Shabbat programs, a million things, going on. I know you were very involved before the CMA Shas. Do you see that as you're a manal? You have a curriculum and you have a goal for this kid. It's hard enough. Do you welcome that? Do you appreciate it? Do you say it's great? Figure out if it works for you. Like how do you view?
It has to be done with a lot of chachma. I have to be careful when we're talking in front of my
go
Smidei
for it.
Shabbos. No, it has to be done with chachma. To overload them is very, very dangerous, because then they just get chas v'shalom sick of it. They're not interested. It's just, okay, here comes the next program, and I have to learn this amount, and I have to do this amount. But it does add spice when it's done the right way, and I'm going to compliment his program. When it's done with a little spice, it adds just a flavor to the learning. It makes, okay, there's something else going on. They're learning about Shabbos in a different light than they ever learned about it. That's good. But the overall, you have to just be careful. Every yeshiva knows, you bring in a program to a yeshiva. Maybe the yeshiva already had 3 other programs going on. So now, the kid he's on programs. He has 16 programs. He can't keep track of what's going on,
I always look at it like this. When I was a Rebbe, Baruch Hashem, I'm a very organized person. I felt like if I'm going to Kabbalah class in September and I'm going to return it at the end of June, if I'm scheduled and I organize and use my time properly, there's so much Torah that needs to be taught. There's so much you could accomplish. So when you do that, so it's like I say, we were saying all these different programs, Shabbos, Brachas, Litas Malachas. You want to go buy flowers for your wife for Shabbos. So you go to the florist, you take roses and some lilies. You take them. Of course, they don't give you a bag anymore these days. You're just going to walk out with them. You come home and you say, good Shabbos, or whatever you say is for Shabbos. Mashenkin, you come, you throw in a baby breath and some greens, you fit a bouquet, a za bouquet. Today, some of these programs, now of course, I'm now asked to know, to fasta, what works. But when you're mashlim a curriculum, you're teaching Gemara Rashi, you're teaching Chumash Rashi, Mishnayos, Halacha, Parsha, whatever it is you're teaching, the ideas, Clolius, and all these additives make a robust child. A child should go to school from pre-1A through 8th grade, and I've heard this. Children come out of 8th grade, I'm sorry, they're bombarded with Gemara is important, obviously, you have to get into Mesivta. And Mishnah, read a pasuk Chumash. Do boys know how to read? Do they know how to read a pasuk Chumash? But what about everything else? A boy should be Balva Kodesh, and not just in Torah, in Yahadus. How can you go to school for 9 years? You come out with, okay, he's only doing Gemara. He reads Chumash and Mishnah. There's so much more going on. So you got to make the bouquet full. So I say these things, what Chavetz Chaim Heritage Foundation does is unbelievable. The Shmiras Halashon. I'd like to believe our Masmidei Shabbos was created in a way not to annoy the Menal, but to be mashlim what Shabbos means. And there's various different things that we're speaking about.
Nobody used the word annoy here. No. You're being diplomatic.
No, chas v'shalom. No, I don't mean that Elliot was saying that. I'm saying, this is the word out there that people look, enough. Make sure that you're giving them as much as you can.
What about the changing role of parents and their involvement in the process? That means, when we were kids, you went to school, and then you came home. And that was it. They weren't calling, they weren't checking, they weren't making sure your food, bring an extra pair of pants. Parents got very protective, for good reason. The world is a dangerous place. How do you view that triangle, that relationship, parent, school, child?
Well, let's talk about being overprotective, that helicopter parent.
Right.
maybe the parent, when the kid is home, feels very good, that she's taking care of him and everything. I see him in yeshiva. He's a nervous wreck. Every single time he gets a little boo-boo, the world just came apart. Rabbi Kaufman, you sure I could go on the bus? There might be like, and I'm telling you, it's coming from the same child whose mother's calling the manal every 5 minutes to make sure that this is okay and that is okay. They're totally feeding off what I would call the anxieties of the home. And whatever a parent could do to be very, very careful that the child doesn't sense that. And the child's antennas are way more powerful than us. And they pick it up. I'm telling you, I have frequent flyers in my office, and I know where it comes from sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes that's where it's coming from. And the parents at home don't see it because they're being the good parent, but in yeshiva, it affects them.
Listen, obviously you never want to have a parent that's going to feel like they have a bias. The parents, if they signed up to a yeshiva, you're paying your tuition, you have to trust the menalim and the principals. So the rebbeim, the teachers are in the classroom, you have to trust. Now, obviously, if you're going to have someone who's hovering, if that's what it is, then the principals...
Right, but one of the rebbeim we had here before, they were talking about Uber Eats in particular. So I understand it a little bit. The kid's hungry. We're not, like I said, the options are there. Why should he be hungry? He has night to soon.
Who ordered the Uber Eats, the parent or the child?
I think the way I understood, the parents order Uber Eats for the kids. The kids call home, they're hungry. They need schnitzel. Yeshiva serving fish. Okay, done. Right? It's not that hard. What are your thoughts on that? I see from your face that you have feelings on this.
You know what? I had a few weeks ago. Well, let's change it to Bobby Eats. Here comes Bobby. She comes. She's the nicest lady. She's 80 years old. She's driving a car. She's coming to bring her child lunch. Now, it's none of my business to know why. But I'm just saying, if every family dynamic is the way it is, if it's every day, it's a red flag. It's a little sad. So the manal should be tactful to find that right time to go over and discuss it. But there's a lot of things going. People are busy. So if in that school they have a rule that you could bring in food from the outside, if it's coming in Uber Eats, what are you going to do? Unless you have a rule.
I want to ask you a question. The boy is getting Uber Eats because today this is what he needs for lunch. Okay? So mommy's taking care of his needs today. What's he going to look like in 20 years?
So you should know. I would say 10 years ago, we shut it down. We have a blanket rule, no food from the outside. Now, we'd rather did it to be careful, kashrus-wise. We don't have any sveikim. And by the way, you should have good food in the yeshiva. Baruch Hashem. Tarting has good food.
YTT.edu. Be part of a yeshiva to see the live stream and the yeshiva. If you believe in good food in yeshivas. If you don't, do something else. But if you do, YTT.edu.
I'm saying, it's like, if they have, Baruch Hashem, if they're fed well, shut it down. You don't have to deal with it. That's what we did. This way you don't have to deal with it.
I know this discussion is not supposed to go to camp, but because Rabbi Kasus is still inviting Uber Eats, children used to come to camp, and you lived the camp life, right? And that was what camp was all about. But if mommy has to bring the Uber Eats, so what's going to start happening then? She's going to have to start sending you...
We don't allow in camp. We don't allow that.
But he needs it.
But it's not going to happen. What does that mean? What do you mean? He doesn't get through the front gate.
I'm saying, but how... If you can't manage during yeshiva, how is he going to manage the whole summer?
No, I hear you. I understand what we're saying. So if the
Can I ask you a question? I'm just curious. I'm not a mechanech. I have no expertise on this and no right to an opinion. These are the realities. Rabbi Kasus is saying these are the kids that we're getting. The Rebbe Shalom sending these kids into our classrooms. So kids didn't used to, and now they do. There didn't used to be a thing called COVID, and now there is. So you adapt. Like, how do you know how to balance as a mechanech? I'm asking you a question. I don't have an answer. What is something that kids didn't used to, so we should never change, which is what you call Messiah, and at the same time within the Messiah, and your father was talking a lot about this, within the Messiah, to know exactly how to evolve and still stay faithful. How do you know that? How do you know which questions and when?
I don't know. I always think, what's this going to... That's what chinuch is. Chinuch is, what am I doing now that's going to affect him in 20 years from now, right? The famous story of Yaakov Kamenetsky was sitting at home and one of the children was running across the table. And he ran across once, he ran across twice, Rabbi Yaakov didn't say a word. Eventually, the person next to him said, Rabbi Yaakov, chinuch, the kid running across the table. And Rabbi Yaakov said, in 20 years from now, he's not going to be running across the table. We don't have to drag him off, right? How are all these things going to affect him? If it's going to have an effect, then it shouldn't be done. And if it won't, okay, so look away.
So then really what we're saying is the yeshiva should set a policy to make sure it doesn't come in. That's it.
You're saying that
right?
success, and that so much of this conversation revolves around successful. You don't look at success this second. I look at success as what I'm trying to build.
Correct.
But that's hard because there's a pressure to produce, right? Like always. Why don't I see the success? You're saying I'm not here to make you, in this moment, feel the success. I'm here to do what I believe that will lead you to be more
No,
successful.
of course he has to feel the success now. But when you're making judgment calls, a good Rebbe is not making a judgment call based on today. He's making a good judgment call is based on the future. He's not looking at right now.
It's a very nice, I've always said, I have a line that sometimes you're talking to a child who's 9, 10, 11, and really talking to you because when you're 20. In other words, you hope, which in a community where you have a ma'aseh is aligned with your parent body, so if the ma'aseh has a message and the parents continue it, then biyachad, you're growing the child to be able to get to that finish line at 20. But when you're educating a child, you're really looking at him when he's 20. I'm a sifta boy, you're talking to him when he's 14, 15. You're looking at him when already he's perhaps newly married or on the verge of getting married. But it's a very important thing, yeah. And the emphasis is if the menal could synchronize the rebbeim, and even if you have your English teachers, your English principal, if everyone could talk a certain language, have a certain same, words domes, so to
That
say.
the Meister should have a philosophy.
Sure, it's very important. Very, very important. The Manal should be in sync with the principal.
Let's take a moment, and I would love to hear from both of you on this, even though it's more your turf. Limudei Chol in yeshivas it either works or it doesn't work, right? We worked hard on that, and I think that the wider yeshiva community has come a long way in trying to create curriculums and bring in teachers that work. It's hard. Kids learn a whole morning. How do you keep that fresh, professional, dynamic?
I'm in my third English principalship. Baruch Hashem was 12 years in Satmar, 11 years at Chassan Sefer, and I'm loving Torah Temimah the last 5 years. I wouldn't take a job somewhere if I didn't have the Manal, or the Rosh Masifta in this case, as someone that I could really partner with. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So Aleph is...
It needs to come within the context of the chinuch of the morning.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And, people would throw out, which I never liked, people would say, oh, the Rebbeim Bared English. I don't like that. It's not a nice thing to say. But if you have a place, like we said, we're in sync together, Makshav the Mudik Mechal as well. Let's be Mashlim. There's a rebellion Shvei in Philly was very makbid, 50%. In other words, the Bachars in the morning, of course, steiging first day or second, whatever it is, English was equal. No such thing. Has to be. You have to. That subliminally has to be given out.
How do you do that as a manal? What Rebecca was saying. How do you empower the teachers and the students? How do you make sure that?
Well, to be honest, I'm there by English.
Oh, come on. You stay there all day.
I'm not there because I'm the English principal. Baruch Hashem, the English,
You stay in the building?
I'm around. I'm around.
Oh, that's huge.
So, like Rabbi Kazu was saying, why am I here? Part of it, obviously I have work to do, that's why I'm staying. But the fact that I'm here is, I care about this
And
also.
you make sure to walk out of your office a little bit. That they know
I'm
that
not,
you're there.
again, the English department is very, very professional, very capable. I'm not there because they need me at all. I'm here.
It's so interesting how you say that. I'm not there, but I'm a Manal in the morning, and I come to Torah Temimah. But, as you're really saying, when you hire an excellent English principal and you trust, when you trust your English principal, you hired him for a reason. Now, Baruch Hashem, in my case, and I think it works that way really in Torah Temimah, my English principal called me during my afternoon hours. Because I just want to make sure we have a situation, I'm doing this. I said, okay, I love it. Maybe don't do this, do that. It's Kabbalistic. So now, when there's a trust with each other, and I very rarely will disagree with my English principal, because when on the interview hire process, you were looking to find a partner that works. So that's, Baruch Hashem.
It's nice to say. Well, so first of all, ytt.edu for parents who want to learn more about yeshiva and be part of the conversation. The yeshiva, that's really a partnership, and if you're a child in Torah Temimah, you should know that the manal is there in the afternoon as well. Let's move on. This is such a you're saying so many interesting things. Let's go back to the topic of success, if you don't mind, one more time. There's a lot of meisters. in the front world, a lot of institutions. And everybody, I live in Montreal, and it's not such a big city, and there's still 2 yeshivas that people have a choice of sending to. How could you say focus on the child's success at the same time as you're aware that there's other meisters? That means you're providing a service to the child, but you also need your parent body happy with you because they have choices. And you're a little bit in a PR business as well. The parents have to be comfortable with the school they chose. How do you make sure you're putting the child's best interests ahead of the school's best interest in terms of its reputation? That means everybody wants the school where the boys finished the Masechta, know the Masechta, took a Bechina, and they're just amazing. You also want to do what's good for the child. But you don't want the parents saying, hey, how come in that yeshiva? They were able, how are you able to balance all that?
So again, if you're doing your malacha, emes la'amitai, you love the children, and memela, you love where they come from, and you care about the family. If there's a vision in the message, if the manal is setting forth a vision together with his board, if there's a board, and that means the English principal, the English department is a partner, then you're not like and it's robust. I'm a big believer. Have a robust curriculum. Make sure English curriculum is great. Hire well. There's no excuse to have hire and bad team. That's a different discussion. How to hire. But when everything's in place and you have good food, it's not a joke. Good food, and there's a guard at the door, and there's a nurse, and everyone's in sync doing their thing. Yeah, there's another school, the yeshiva down the road, and there's one. I'm being ehrlich. I'm being emes la'amitai. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to give. We're going to do. I mean, unless there's a problem, someone come forward, present to me an issue. We'll talk about that also. But let's go.
Stay focused on the game.
We're all in. Absolutely.
We work the boys hard. It's true, starting from preschool and up. But we're very, very passionate. Mishnama Rabbi Kasus agrees with that. Very passionate at highlighting successes. And we keep doing it. Every small nuance. A boy could come into my office and tell me a tiniest thing, and it becomes amazing. Now why? Not because I'm trying to be gushy in it, no. Because he needs to constantly hear how successful he is. You can't say it enough. I'll meet a boy walking down the steps and say, by the way, you know, your Rebbe told me yesterday that you asked a very good kasha. I said, I made his day. He's going to go back into that classroom and be propelled to want to do more and reach that goal.
Don't worry about, I don't know your ages. Our parents didn't overly compliment us. It wasn't the philosophy of that generation. It's going to get swelled head. It's going to get. Today, the parents, you're the Gadol Hadar, right? You said Al Michya by heart. You are Chaim Kaneyevsky. Again, what's the balance? You want to compliment, you want to highlight success. You also don't want them to, and then they'll go into real life and they'll say, oh, okay.
Good question.
Thank you.
I always try to make sure it's real.
Whenever
a Rebbe is discussing something with me and he'll mention something about a Talmud, even if it's small, like, his handwriting is very good, I file it away in my head. Good handwriting. And then when I meet him walking down the hall, your Rebbe told me you have a good handwriting. And he knows it's true. Because he does. Maybe he couldn't pass the test, but I have a good handwriting.
Wow.
So when it's real, it means something. When it's just...
Find the real thing.
Yeah.
Not just you're amazing.
Right.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's interesting. On my end in the English department, I'm going to get Rabbi Leo's Talmidim graduating 8th grade in September, coming to 9th grade. I've watched full cycle of a Masifta boy in Torah Temimah coming in at 9th grade, and I watch, after 4 years, how he walks out 12th grade. The B'nai Torah, the whole process of how the Talmidim go through there, and it really there's a besides the learning, but there's a sipuk and talking to them and watch them grow, and they're extremely well behaved. I'm saying that really straight up. You're gonna say, really, Masifta? You can't imagine. I don't take home a tipa of stress ever, bli ayin hara, and I'm talking because the Bachrim are unbelievable. But this is all part. Nothing happens by us. Nothing happens in a vacuum. There has to be that it's shtel from the hanhol in the morning, and to go through 4 years in Masifta.
You're saying it's a myth that because they learn hard, they're just unruly and they can't behave normally. You're saying you could be a mensch and you could have darach even if you learn hard.
If you want it to be, exactly. If you're going to acquire anything that you want to acquire. Well, but success has to be planned. You have to want that. So if you have a hanhola and you have a ma'isa that's set up and you have a structure in each department, the Bachrim want, it makes music. It does. It's
wow.
It's work.
Let's close with this question. I would love to hear. There are parents who are watching this conversation. and they want a practical takeaway besides the theory of chinuch, what would you say, in your experience, is the single greatest ingredient in successful parents? That means this is a home that has blank, an approach, an idea, a midah, and that's why their kids come out that way. What would you say is that ingredient? Work on your, and you'll be successful, Be'ezus Hashem. A home of,
That's a good question.
you know what your father said?
What do you say?
MS.
Oh.
An honest home.
I was going to say
Where
that. I was going to
say
the
what
word
they mean.
trust. Yeah.
I loved it. I did not expect it. I've asked this question before, and there's answers, and they're all good. Your father said, "Emes." It was like, it was, to me, I see that you're not surprised by the answer. You want to expand on his answer, maybe?
I hear, but I'll say something that I know he believes in also. So it won't be chasri, I'm not allowed to argue, is a disciplined home. Now, you're going to be like, oh, Rabbi Kaufman, I'm not like that at all.
Isn't it interesting? You see how nervous you got? You said a normal word. You see, you have to defend for to make. And he's saying a
You said the
bad
D word.
Why?
No, he's
word.
He's gewaldig. He's saying the right thing, but we have to defend it.
Yeah, right?
Disciplined
I'm telling you, Torah is all about being a disciplined person. There's Hayig mitzvahs, there's lois assays, there's assays, and if children are coming out just undisciplined, just do whatever it takes to make them happy, you know, it's okay, it's fine. He got a little bit upset today, okay, switch his class. That whole thing, he'll never be a success. He's just being spoon-fed whatever he needs to keep him afloat. It's not going to work.
Respect the system and respect the parameters of the
Yeah,
system.
yeah. There's guidelines.
And you've
there's-
seen
yeah.
this. You've seen homes that run this way.
And I just had a story today. The Rebbe came to me, and he's a star Rebbe, and he said, Rabbi Kaplan, the boy is just so like loose. You know, the home is loose, and he's just loose. How are you supposed to be mechanech him and guide him?
What
Why
did
should I
the
do this?
answer?
Why
What
should
did
I
he
do
say?
that? Well, that's what we need the homes to be, you know, as much as we're going to try in yeshiva, but if the message he's getting at home is that it's okay.
It's going
you
to
know.
work against the success of the child.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Do you ever
that-
see a successful person who just did as he pleased, and you know, it doesn't work that way. Every business, everybody, and every
Sure.
I say, you know, just like in a marriage, if the children see that mommy and tati agree and everyone's on the same page, and there's a covenant and the respect back and forth, you don't argue with mommy, you don't argue with tati. It's the same thing. If their parents allow the children to believe Rebbe's right, Nora's right, Yeshiva's right, you have a shayla, you call the yeshiva. There's an issue. But show support for the ma'aseh. Trust the mechanechim who are being mechanech children. And then, if Baruch Hashem parenting is being done correctly in the home, like Rabbi Elio said, discipline is an important thing, structure is an important thing, then you have a wonderful recipe that should be a child leaves the house at 8:30 in the morning, comes home at 4:30. There should be a lot of good going on in that little boy's life because it's consistency.
And you're seeing, Baruch Hashem, you're seeing
Oh,
homes.
the children, the ones that come through mishpachas that keep on having hatzlacha, 100%. It's just normal language. It's just healthy. It's a trying time. Things have gotten harder, but this is a very nice conversation. There's conversations that could be had with parents, and that's what we have to do. You know, this is
I love it.
this is
I love it.
important.
The ability to communicate it, though, is
That's the word. Yes.
YTT.edu to tap in to the secrets. Really not secrets, the most obvious things in the world. They are for the taking. Thank you.
YTT.edu. I could say it 100 times over. YTT.edu.
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 YTT.edu.